Outlaw Country by Ghotty. Chapter 5, Long-Haired Country Boy. The crowd gathered behind the ruined gates as I walked in, side by side with Jeff, who was still coming off his adrenaline rush. I got a closer look at the insect people. The only thing that they had in common was a chitinous, Jeff taught me that word, coverings along their bone ridges, so spines, arms, jaws, etc. They're varied in color and consistency, much like the people themselves. Some add different pieces of insect or parts in their bodies, legs, antennae, arms, etc. I briefly wondered how they reproduced before I buried that question into a shallow grave. One of them stepped forward as I did. Other than the chitin, they looked mostly human, save for the extra pair of arms below the other set. He was old, with wizened gray hair and the air of culpability.
"Thank you for your assistance. What are your intentions?" he asked.
I realized that he was the one who had yelled orders on the wall, the same tunnely voice sounding the same distance away, even though he was standing right in front of me. "Can y'all make bullets?" I asked. "That's my intention." He blinked, eyes slightly off in the same way. I can't put my finger on it.
"We can. Most of us are craftsmen. We are from the industrial."
"Then I reckon we can make a deal. What's it going to be?" He stared at me for a moment, and I wasn't interested in drawn-out conversations, and it seemed like that neither was he, so I just gave him an ultimatum. Either they let me in, or they didn't, and I move on. No need for complications. Besides, if he was smart, he would let me in, and if he wasn't, they weren't worth befriending anyway. He opened his mouth to respond, but was rudely interrupted once again.
"Teach me how to shoot,"
yelled a voice from the crowd. The man in front of me cringed with practiced efficiency. A young girl pushed her way to the front. That probably wasn't all that hard despite her height. She too had an extra pair of arms, and I figured she was the man's daughter or something. Nobody else around had that particular trait. And I'd recognize the man's expression of pain anywhere. She was short and blonde, and she had the usual chitin, but this time pitch black, following the line of her nose as well as her jaw.
"Come on, I'll pay you," she begged.
Her voice had the same touch that her father's did, although there weren't quite distinct in levels of shrillness. I stayed silent as the man in front of me turned on his heels and started barking orders in only the way a father could.
"Lily, enough."
"Dad, we can't survive another attack unless something changes. We need to."
"I know. Be quiet."
I was watching quietly as they continued to argue about obvious things. I appreciate it. Actually, as the nervous crowd slowly calmed down, the probably familiar sight taking the edge off. Weird how an argument about the fate of their village could do that, but people are people. As much as I loved standing there, "Can my partner and I speak to you in private?" I asked, interrupting the man yet again.
"Partner?" he asked.
"He means me," said Jeff, voice still a little bit jittery.
"Oh, very well."
I expected more surprise, but I suppose we were both equally strange to them. The man nodded towards the crowd, and they began to disperse, sending glances back towards us on their way to wherever it was they came from.
"My name is Edmundo, and I am the de facto leader of our humble little corner of the world," he said,
raising his hands and gesturing towards the town as a whole. "Yours?"
"Buck."
I found myself in his office, sitting in the most comfortable chair that has ever graced my ass. I couldn't quite place the materials, but then again, I couldn't say the same for most of the decor. It was a sizable office, walls and floor following the universal black and gray color scheme, with shelves decorated with rewards and trophies and various knickknacks. Edmundo sat on the other side of the desk, bottom hands against it, and his head resting on his top set. Jeff was outside due to not being able to fit through the doors. He took exception to that, but then he had found some nice shade to rest in, so he couldn't complain all that much. Edmundo broke the silence. "What species are you?" "Human, from Earth. Are you familiar?" He shook his head. "No, the species is nor the planet." "A shame. What is your planet?" He shook his head again. "No, we are the Charia, and our planet is named Churi." "How are you so sure?" "It had 3 moons. 3 moons? Damn. I bet night attacks were so effective then, with 3 sources of light and all." "Why are we here?" I asked. "I don't know that any more than you do, save for what seems evident from the situation the status screens. I believe it to be sort of a test of strength, organized by aliens. Maybe we are on a reality TV show with a bunch of bulbous masses of slimes jittering their feelers at our suffering." Wow, I didn't even catch half of that statement. "Is the status screens those odd letters that float in front of the air?" He looked bemused. "I cannot believe the aliens didn't think to consider people who can't read. That's just hurtful." I can't help but agree. Apparently, that's a rare thing, and considering that the vast majority of people I've ever met also couldn't read, implies that the Earth was so dumb that not even an all-powerful alien considered it the possibility. I find it vaguely amusing just how I accepted the alien theory without a second thought. After all these years of laughing at those tinfoil hat-wearing lunatics, I owe them an apology. Thank the Lord I'll never have to actually do it. I could see that in his eyes now. He was looking down on me, just a bit. "So, how have you survived these last 3 weeks?" "Pardon?" "You've been, well, almost alone this whole time. How did you survive the outside?" I'm afraid I don't understand the question. He was looking down on me even more now, but it wasn't my damn fault that he was making no sense. "How did you feed yourself without getting torn apart by those damn monsters? The tall woods hide all manner of creatures, and we can't find enough food in it. We've been getting by with fishing, but we can't go too far from the walls without getting targeted. I know you're a good shot, but you've also got to sleep sometimes. So how?" "Oh, I get it. You guys don't have much nature on your planet, do you?" "No. The forests and the plains are the most bountiful I have ever seen, with plenty of animals to hunt and plants to pick. It's crawling with life as far as creatures go, as long as you play it smart. Surviving ain't no issue." He looked excited and significantly less demeaning. "You mean to tell me Earth has fauna like this, and you can theoretically survive indefinitely?" I don't know what theoretically or indefinitely means, but you can support a town this size easily, even without farming. Speaking of which, I asked a question that had been bugging me for a while. How did you get those metal buildings up if you can't even leave without tripping and bashing your head against a rock? He shrugged. Apparently his shrug was actually 2 arms on the same shoulder, which was an odd way to shrug. But then I don't have 4 arms, so who am I to judge? "When we found ourselves here, the buildings and contents of them came with us. It took us a week to get the damn fence up, and we lost a good number of people doing it." Huh. I wonder why I didn't come in with the backwater town I died in. Probably because I was dead. "So I assume those buildings have the tools you need to make guns and ammo." He laughed pridefully, crossing both sets of arms. "We were ripped from the industrial heart of the North, the capital city of Chukari. We are the finest damn craftsmen of our entire species. Every damn man, woman, and child here has a tool belt, and more than half the people here are craftsmen of some sort. He leaned forward. So yes, we do. Seems like we both have the skillets that others want. I like a man who doesn't beat around the bush. So it would seem. If you can stay here and show us more able-bodied citizens how to survive in the forest, we can supply you with home, weapons, supplies, and walls for when the final wave hits. Do we have a deal? I thought about it, and a sneaking suspicion I couldn't survive a wave alone, as my understanding that it is well and even worse than an attack I had just finished fighting off. Besides, I couldn't make bullets. Honestly, that point alone was worth pretty much any hassle. What were the chances I ran into a group of people with a specific skill set that I needed the most? Very little. I don't have any more choice than Edmundo does. I stood up and held out my hand. Fine, it's a deal. Edmundo stared at my hand incomprehensibly. You clasp it and you shake it. That's how we seal a deal. Ah, I like it, he said, taking my hand in his own, shaking it like a limp-wristed child. Huh. Great, yelled Edmundo, visibly relieved. Feel free to get sustained. We'll have another week until the next minor wave anyway. I'll gather a group of volunteers the day after tomorrow. Also, he gave me a look of somebody saying something they wanted to for a while. The showers are next door. Goddamn city slickers. I don't smell that bad.